kind of did an introduction to the truth about food. We're kind of taking it to the, oh, and for those of you who were here last time, in case you were wondering, I did not bake cookies this time. So if you want to get up and leave because there's no cookies at the end, that's fine. Those of you who weren't here, I baked a batch of wheat-free chocolate chip cookies, and they were delicious. But I'm happy to be back. We're going to take it to the next step, to the next level. Last month's presentation was kind of about the pitfalls in the modern diet, specifically the wheat products and the simple sugars and all that. Now we're going to get into nutrition, which can be both basic and very complicated. And you'll kind of see what I mean as we go through this. I tried to make things simple, but just the scientist in me and some of the research is very complicated. You have to kind of filter it down, disseminate it, turn it into an easy thing. In fact, initially, the hardest part of this project, you'll have to forgive me, was like, I'm not like a PowerPoint expert, and I had my 12-year-old help me with the PowerPoint, so we ended up with all kinds of like fun little graphics and animation and stuff like that. But the main concept here is you can't exercise away a poor diet. And no matter how many supplements you take, you can't make a poor diet go away. So keep that in mind as we go through this. Now, why is nutrition important? Just some basic ideas to begin with. Obviously, they fuel your normal daily activities and exercise if you exercise. It helps restore the body's energy levels. It helps boost the immune system and prevent illness. How many people realize that? There's a lot of people that don't realize that. They think a diet of Cheetos and ice cream and stuff like that. They feel betrayed when they catch a cold. It also strengthens and repairs muscles, bones, and ligaments, etc. when we go through our normal activities of daily living, because we're constantly breaking down. You need the supplies, you need the fuel to rebuild it. Okay, we're not that much different than, say, your car. You have to refuel it with gas every now and then to keep it going. Make sense? Now, oh my God, I'm going to kill my 12-year-old. Now, I'm going to go through some simple healthy eating for health and weight control. Now, this comes from my experts. A lot of you are going to look at this and think, oh my gosh, no way. Some of these may seem just undoable, but let's go through them here, okay? No processed foods. I talked last month about the guy, a patient of mine, who was essentially on what he called a barcode diet. If it had a barcode on the package, that's what he was eating. So no processed foods. Number two, no refined carbohydrates. That's when we get into things like white breads and things like that. No dairy products. Scary thing about dairy is you don't know where the dairy came from. All the cows. There's a hypothesis out there. Like you've noticed, kids are getting bigger. They're just getting larger. They think it's from all the hormones, specifically they put in dairy products to make the cows bigger, produce more. It's passed on to these kids, and they're getting bigger. No grains, including whole wheat grains. No alcohol, which there's one little exception here that I will add. I will editorialize, if you will. A little bit of wine's okay. Wine has resveratrol in it, which is actually very good, has some very good health benefits. Now, you can't sit and drink 3 bottles of wine and say, well, this is good for my heart. No, you might have a glass per night. You have to explain with a lot of people. They kind of take things the wrong way. Also, no between meal snacks. Well, I will interject here because I love raw almonds and maybe a little piece of like dark chocolate, real dark chocolate, like 86%, 90% dark chocolate, because it's a very good antioxidant and it's much, much lower in sugar. But raw almonds are a good in-between meal snack. They're full of healthy oils, full of fiber. They're very good for you. Now, some people might look at this and say, no way, there's just some things I can't take out of my life. But the next slide, here's some things that are a little easier to control. Don't eat after dinner. After you eat dinner, you don't need a snack 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. You're going to be going to bed. That stuff's just going to be sitting around. It's going to be turned into fat because you're not burning any energy. Eat only when you're hungry. A lot of people eat as a social event or because they're bored or because they're stressed. Truly, our bodies are designed to function on the I need fuel, put fuel in it type of basis. So you run low on supplies, you refill it up, kind of like your gas light goes on. Okay, time to go get gas. People just don't stop at the gas station and try to shove more gas in their car because they're bored or they're stressed, right? Wouldn't that be something? Wouldn't that be something? I'm having a rough day. Let's go to Safeway and fill up. I hope I have a gas discount, right? Reward points. Okay. Don't overeat. A lot of people will sit down. A lot of the restaurants will give you humongous portion sizes. That keeps people coming back to the restaurant. It actually takes about 20 minutes for the brain to recognize that you're full. The stomach sends signals up to the brain and all that, and that process takes about 20 minutes. So it might be good after you eat like a normal size portion, just kind of wait and see if you're still hungry before you order the flowing lava chocolate volcano after dinner. Also, MSG. A lot of our food, especially the appetizers. And what are appetizers? The things you eat before you eat to make you more hungry. Okay? MSG will alter your appetite, your sense of fullness. It is a known neuroexcitotoxin, and it alters that appetite center in the brain. So when you get MSG on board, chances are you'll eat more. Okay. Also, this is completely in your control. We talked a little bit about reading labels last time. Who knows what this is?
High fructose corn syrup.
High fructose corn syrup, one of the most evil substances on the planet. No trans fats, no glutamate. The glutamates are the MSGs. Glutamates are also in the artificial sweeteners, like, what are those things? The pink package, the Splenda, and stuff like that. A lot of people think, oh, I'm doing a good thing for my life here. Instead of sugar, I'm using the Splenda. Well, no, it's a glutamate. It's a known neuroexcitotoxin. It's destroying brain cells. You may be cutting a few sugar calories right now, but you will have Alzheimer's in 20 years. So don't use it. Or it may be too late. But you can use coconut oil, reverse some of those processes. We'll get there. Yeah, no aspartame, no sodium benzoate, which is a preservative, no artificial colors. And those are usually clearly listed on the food labels.
Can we go back one? Oh, not to
Which one?
Eat only when hungry. In my mind, I'm thinking about metabolism and how your body is trained to feel hungry, if you will, because of your regular routine of eating.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully healthy, but if you don't feed it, I've always thought that your body would store whatever you did eat prior to as fat because it's afraid it's not going to get fed for another 6 hours, hoping that you feel hungry.
Well, that brings up a whole nother topic. Is your question true or not true? Well, a little bit of both, but that brings up the whole issue of epigenetics. Because some people think, okay, if you don't eat, you go into starvation mode, so the body becomes very efficient at storing fat for the next fast. Mm-hmm. You may have what they call, in fact, the geneticists call it a thrifty gene, which may kind of conserve energy like that, but you can turn on that gene and light it up through your dietary habits, and it can even depend upon what your mother did while you were in the womb, that external environmental factors can light up that gene. So if you do that, yes, you can store more fat, but in general, it's safe to say just eat when hungry. Okay? And I'm not a big fan of genetics, to be quite honest. It's a difficult field, but there's some very exciting research out there about how you can alter your own genetics through your environment. It's really interesting. Okay, now, basic diet, according to the experts, should be about a third meat and then 2/3 fruit and vegetables. And of those fruit and vegetables, it should be 75% veggies, 25% fruit. A lot of folks will make the mistake of trying to eat healthier, and they'll go get a giant fruit smoothie, and it's just like all fruit. It's 100% fruit. And fruit is very high in fructose, which is a natural sugar, which is kind of hard for the body to process, and it is preferentially stored as fat. If you think about our ancestors, like go back 10,000 years, 20,000 years, when would they eat fruit? Well, when it was in season. So they had kind of a short window when they actually ate fruit, and the body was okay with that. Now with our modern farming techniques and chemicals and things like that, heck, we can have an apple in the middle of January, and our bodies just we evolutionarily haven't caught up yet. So it should be, of that 2/3, 75% veggies and 25% fruit. Okay, now, here's the next important point. Who knows what omega-3s and omega-6s are? You've probably heard the terms.
Doesn't one come from like fish and one come from vegetables?
You're close. They're basically oils. They're fatty acids, if you will. They are omega-3 and omega-6s just has to do with where the carbons are hooked up in this particular oil that makes up the oil, okay? And these are what we call essential oils. Basically, a good source of omega-3s, for example, would be salmon or fish. These fatty acids or these oils our bodies can't produce, so they're called essential fatty acids. You have to get them from your diet. Now, here's the important thing right here. The ratio of these omega-6s to omega-3s. In each kind of oil, each substance will provide either an omega-6 or omega-3 or both in different ratios. The proper ratio of those two is vital to fighting the chronic inflammation and fighting disease. Okay? As an example, our ancestors 10,000 years ago, the ratio of these omega-6 oils to the omega-3 oils was about 1 to 1. Okay? And the omega-6 oils are things like cottonseed oil, corn oil, things like that. Omega-3s would be olive oil, walnut oil. Around 1900, the ratio of the omega-6s to omega-3s was about 4 to 1. Currently, that ratio is 25 to 1. This essentially means almost every human being, unless they're paying attention to these kind of things, and the later slides will kind of explain a little bit, unless they're paying attention, they're in a state of chronic inflammation. And every single disease out there that people suffer from is essentially a disease of chronic inflammation, whether it's coronary disease, artery disease, kidney disease, everything is essentially chronic inflammation. In fact, you can get tests done to see a little finger prick test, send your blood off, and it will tell you exactly what your ratio is and where you're at. Yes.
Can you write doctor note for that?
You don't need a doctor. Okay. Come on in. I have the lab information at the, they just send me a few kits and we prick your finger and send it off and they'll tell you where you're at. Okay? All right. Maybe we should get a pool going. Everybody throwing $5. Who thinks Jennifer is under 4 to 1? Now, the reason this ratio of the omega-6 to the omega-3s has changed dramatically is because of the widespread use of the vegetable oils in the processing. You know, at one point in our history, people thought, oh my gosh, we can't cook in animal fats, that's bad for you. Well, as it turns out, it was less bad for you than the vegetable oils because they're very high in these omega-6 fatty acids. So they've even taken the good oils and processed the heck out of it to increase the shelf life and increase the taste. So they thought, okay, we're doing a good thing here. We're going to make these oils last longer. We've got all this corn, which is subsidized by the government. It's cheap. It's plentiful. We can cook all kinds of things in it. Oopsie, guess what? We've created a whole generation of sick people, and they didn't know they were getting sick. Now, like we talked about, the omega-6s create that chronic inflammation. Now, here's a quote. I kind of love quotes. I'm going to throw quotes in here from people smarter than me. Maintaining a proper balance between the various families of dietary fats may be one of the most important preventive measures a person can take to reduce the likelihood of developing chronic diseases like diabetes, obesity, irritable bowel syndrome, that's what IBS is, and autoimmune disorders. How many people do you know with rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, things like that? There's even a big implication in things like fibromyalgia. Okay? And everybody knows somebody with fibromyalgia. Everybody knows somebody with diabetes. Everybody knows somebody who wants to lose weight. And this is from Weiner's Pain Management in 2006. Now, here's good examples for you. Here's some good oils and fats. The olive, walnut, coconut oil, flax oil, hemp oil, and there's some of the evil guys. What is the most common stuff in everybody's kitchen right now? Does anybody have any of these in their kitchen in a nice jar? Probably corn oil. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, we even have some corn oil in there. And canola oil came through as like the savior. Oh, you know, the skies parted and, you know, the angels sang. But that's just as bad because it's full of those omega-6s. So there's even a difference between the good oils and bad oils that you use. Lately, I've been using a lot of coconut oil. And it's not really all that awfully coconutty, so it really doesn't destroy stuff. You just can't cook above 350 degrees with it.
So in the olive oil, does it matter, like they have extra virgin olive oil and yada, yada, yada? What's like the best?
Pretty much any olive oil is good. Okay. In fact, here's a clue. If the glass jar, first of all, it should come in a glass jar. That's clue number one. Second clue is if it comes in a dark, like if you notice olive oil is usually in a dark green jar or dark brown jar. Think beer. Why do they put it in brown bottles? Because light will oxidize it and destroy it. Any good oil has a certain shelf life to it, and light will oxidize it, so they put it in a darker colored bottle to prevent it from oxidizing. Okay? Even like my fish oil supplements, I keep them in the fridge. I mean, they're in a dark capsule, they're in a sealed jar, but just keep them cool just to keep them as fresh as possible so they don't oxidize over time. Okay? This stuff, it comes in a clear plastic bottle. I mean, that stuff, you can leave that stuff on your shelf, you know, from when your kids are in diapers till they graduate from college, and it'll be exactly the same. Okay, now, this is very scary. This will blow your mind. You've probably read or heard about veterans coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan, and there's a very high suicide rate amongst this population. Okay, they kind of attribute it to post-traumatic stress disorder or other types of problems. Well, they did a study. This study came out of the Journal of Clinical Psychiatry in 2011. The risk of suicide deaths among veterans was 62% higher among men with low serum DHA, which, never mind the docosahexaene, these things get way complicated with the chemistry, but that is an essential omega-3 fatty acid. 62% of the guys who committed suicide were lacking omega-3 fatty acids. The implications for that are crazy. What if all these guys were taking a fish oil supplement, restored the normal balance of the omega-3s to omega-6s? Would they still be here today? I don't know, but this is amazing research right here that kind of says, oops, maybe we ought to break it down and get real simple with this and kind of give them what their body needs, because once you get those balances off, it can affect your brain chemistry also. All right, now, this is kind of like one of those welcome to my world type of slides to show you what I get presented with when I learn about these things. But it'll essentially show you, here's the good oils. They come down here, they form the DHA. The DHA is what they measured in that study with the veterans, the suicide victims, the veterans. It builds brain synapses, increases production of serotonin and dopamine. Your body can naturally produce those things. And the dopamine and the serotonin, those are kind of like the feel-good things that your brain releases. Okay, and then you have the crappy oils up here, which eventually come down here, turn into arachidonic acid, which is a bad guy, which creates all kinds of inflammation, leads to vascular disease, diabetes, chronic illness, all kinds of nasty stuff. So the biochemistry is there. It doesn't lie. This isn't just people giving their opinion. They track all these things biochemically, and they say, oh my gosh, here's what happens when this is too high and there's not enough of this here. Okay, oh, and interestingly enough, if there's any like ibuprofen fans out there, ibuprofen cuts off this pathway right here. So you still got all the icky stuff, but the ibuprofen interferes with the development of prostaglandin E2. That's what these are right here, COX-1, 2, and 3 inhibitors. It tries to whack those out to prevent that chronic inflammation process. But of course, non-steroidal anti-inflammatories like ibuprofen and Aleve and all that stuff, they of course have their own problems. Okay? All right, any questions so far? I know that stuff's kind of like, woo! Essentially what it boils down to is look for good oils, use good oils, not bad oils. When you go to McDonald's, get the French fries, guess what? They're cooked in some kind of vegetable oil that probably isn't good for you. Even Burger King, oh, we have fries with 30% less fat. Well, guess what? They cooked it in evil oil, and it's going to kill you. Around your own house, if you're going to fry something in awful oil, well, maybe you can bake it. Maybe you can do something different with it, and you don't have to use junky oil. If you're going to put something in a pan and cook it, maybe you can substitute some olive oil or some coconut oil, something along those lines.
So on the omega, the fish oil,
Mm-hmm.
what do you recommend for like a daily dose of fish oil?
I recommend at least 3,000 milligrams a day of fish oil. At least 3,000. If people are challenged with some kind of chronic condition, maybe 5,000. You can go up to about 10,000. 10,000 is about the cap. Okay? And know your fish oil, folks, because I think it was Consumer Reports a while back actually evaluated fish oils. And a lot of fish oils, number one, don't have the potency that they actually state on the bottle. And number two, they're not cleaned out. All fish has mercury in it. All fish has heavy metal poisoning just because big fish eat little fish and little fish eat off the bottom, and that's where we kind of deposited all our industrial waste over the years. But a good fish oil will be molecularly distilled to get all the heavy metals out of it and clean it out. And it will be the exact potency that it's described on the label. In fact, I think there's an organization, you'll see a little sticker on the label that says USP. That means it's been verified. What's in it is actually in it. And the Consumer Reports thing, they took some major brands. And surprisingly, one of the ones that scored the highest was Kirkland fish oil capsules, the Costco brand fish oils.
There's Nature's Best or something, there's another brand.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of them out
Yeah, it's kind of hard. I have one supplier for fish oil who I trust. I know exactly what lengths they go to you know, and it's not even glow-in-the-dark fish oil, like from the Pacific. It's from like Norway and Netherlands, off the icy waters off of there, because now we have a genuine concern about the radiation from the Fukushima making its way over. It's pretty much at like the Aleutian Islands in Alaska right now. So that obviously is going to be contaminating fish, and the bigger fish will be more contaminated because they eat the smaller fish. So look for a reputable brand of fish oil. I might recommend the Kirkland brand. And I'm not here to sell anything, but I know I can get a good quality supplement at my office.
What about krill oil?
You know what? That's good stuff, rich in omega-3s. But now I'm not a Birkenstock wearing chain myself to a tree so they don't cut down the forest type of person, but krill is the lowest life form in the ocean, and all the other life forms in the ocean kind of depend on krill. So I hate to see the world, the planet, get to the point where all the krill is like overfished and there isn't enough to support sea life. That's why I'd rather kind of take the bigger fish as opposed to the base food for all the fish.
My doctor recently recommended that I take fish oil. And you said like 3,000 milligrams. She only recommended 1,200.
Mm-hmm. That's not enough.
What am I not?
Yeah, that's not enough. That's not enough.
Told.
Well, most of the, well, that's the thing. I mean, and you don't know any better. You know.
And I researched, you should look to make sure it has a COA certificate of something on the bottle of fish oil. You know, check for that. Call the company. I'm like, I read all this stuff and I just got really more confused.
And this is your doctor that's telling you that?
I just researched what kind I should get, the best kind of fish oil to get. And that's when I came across all this stuff that to watch out for. Some of it can actually be bad for you, what you're buying. You know, it just go nuts.
You can't go wrong with the fish oil. But take at least 3,000 milligrams a day. And a lot of the studies, you might hear medical doctors, even if they provide recommendations as far as nutrition goes, which doesn't happen a whole lot, they'll look at one particular study, and in studies they tend to be a little bit timid with the amounts that they use in the recommendations. When we talk about vitamin D, I'll talk a little bit more about that, but minimum 3,000 milligrams of fish oil is what you should be getting.
And does taking NSAIDs interfere with taking these supplements? Do they contradict each other?
They don't necessarily contradict each other, but NSAIDs are kind of bad. They kill like 10,000 people a year for various reasons. I mean, do you have to take them? Well, I mean, we can talk about that later if we're getting too deep into it. But fish oil, in and of itself, is a powerful anti-inflammatory. You might be able to eliminate the NSAIDs if you're taking enough fish oil. In fact, there's a lot of studies out there where they have shown that fish oil is just as or more effective than, say, ibuprofen, the NSAIDs, at decreasing inflammation and chronic pain. So there you go. With a lot less side effects, no gastrointestinal bleeding, and if you get a good fish oil, you're not even going to burp fish, okay? That's, you know.
That's what I'm interested
That was
in.
my question.
If you have,
I heard
The
bad
one I
things
bought
about the taste.
is burp-free. You don't,
if,
don't
yeah,
think so.
if you have quality fish oil,
Mhm.
it will not, what's the polite word, repeat. You will not burp the fish oil if it's a quality fish oil.
I got it at Natural Planet. Yeah, he recommended this one time. I can't remember that brand of it, but yeah.
Because I don't want to taste it again.
Yeah.
At all.
And if you have a capsule, you won't taste the fish oil. Now, some people who are on higher doses of fish oil, it's more convenient for them to take a teaspoon of the liquid concentrate, which is gross. You kind of got to hold your nose, take your fish oil, but you're done for the day with a teasppoon.
Yeah, and
But
you
when you're
lose your
taking
taste
th-
buds for the whole
But
day.
when you're, you got to make a choice, Cherish.
Wash it down with some wine.
It's not as good as, you know, Cool Ranch Doritos, but you know, the people are higher dose fish oil, they, whoop, you know, with the capsules, you'll end up taking a lot of capsules. I mean, you might have to take 6, 8 capsules to get to that 3,000 milligrams, depending on how much is in each capsule. And read the label. Okay, this is how much fish oil. What is the serving size? 1 capsule, 2 capsules, 3 capsules. So know what you're looking at. Okay. All right. Antioxidants. I love antioxidants. Okay. The main one I want to talk about is glutathione. Has anybody heard that term before? Probably not. Glutathione is produced by the liver. The liver makes it. So you can't actually take glutathione. You have to ingest the precursor to glutathione, which is called N-acetylcysteine, which is an amino acid. Now, N-acetylcysteine is found in meat, found in broccoli, things like that. But most of our diets are deficient in N-acetylcysteine because of modern farming practices. The soils are depleted, the food is so processed. You would have to eat a truckload of raw meat every day. You'd have to eat, you know, a tub full of broccoli. It's just not practical. So you have to supplement. Number one, glutathione makes all the other antioxidants in the body work better. Now, what's a well-known antioxidant? Like vitamin C. You always hear about the antioxidant properties of vitamin C and all that. Well, normally you have a vitamin C, and here's what they call a free radical. Those are the bad guys that cause all the damage. The vitamin C is the antioxidant. It comes over, it hooks onto that free radical, which is a negative electron, and it's discharged out of the body through your waste. With enough glutathione being produced by the liver, that vitamin C can grab onto that free radical, drop it off with the glutathione, and go out and scavenge for another free radical. So it makes all the other antioxidants work better. Okay? So if you're taking 1,000 milligrams, 2,000 milligrams of vitamin C a day, you can make it work even better. Also, your immune system cannot work right without the liver producing enough glutathione. I mentioned earlier how people catch a cold. Now think about it. Do people really catch a cold? I always propose that the cold caught them. Okay? Think about this. Germs don't cause disease any more than rats cause garbage. It's the other way around. Germs are opportunistic. If they find a suitable host, unhealthy body, rundown body, they are going to set up camp. Okay? Because how is it you can be in a room with 12 other people, 6 of them the next day come down with the flu or a cold, and 6 don't? Do germs cause disease? Did the germs stroll through here and say, okay, I'll take him, her, him? No, it doesn't happen that way. They're opportunistic, okay? So if your immune system is up and functioning at 100% or close to it with all the proper raw ingredients, you will not get sick, or when you get sick, it will be a lot less severe. Okay. Great source of N-acetylcysteine is undenatured whey protein. Not just whey protein, undenatured whey protein. They don't, they don't heat the heck out of it. I have a good source for undenatured whey protein, but I'm sure there's several sources out there you can take or find. Also, glutathione supplement. They can take the N-acetylcysteine, put it in a little pill for you. It's a little easier than mixing the powder every morning. It doesn't taste very exciting. It's not as good as fish oil, but I found if you mix it in almond milk, it's pretty good. Okay. Now, we're going to talk about the other antioxidants in just a little bit, so be patient. But I want to talk about vitamin D. Most people are deficient in vitamin D. Vitamin D is kind of like the ignored vitamin. I feel sorry for vitamin D. It's like the underdog, and it's so important. Approximately, according to Integrative Medicine in February, March 2010, 50%, half of the healthy North American population and more than 80% of those with chronic diseases are vitamin D deficient. That is a huge, huge, huge number. Those with vitamin D deficiency experience 39% higher annual healthcare costs than those with normal levels of vitamin D. You can't see that. We don't need Obamacare. We need... It got me too. That was like 5.4 seconds. Yeah. We don't need Obamacare. We need to send everybody in the country, North America, in fact, a bottle of vitamin D. Okay? Because there's some pretty amazing research with vitamin D. It, number one, may have a protective effect against MS, which is multiple sclerosis. Okay? You may or may not know somebody with MS, but kind of an awful neurodegenerative disorder. They've shown that vitamin D kind of protects you against that. Taking vitamin D supplements for more than 10 years lowered the risk of developing MS by 59%. I mean, essentially 60%. I mean, that's huge. And that comes from a real journal, Neurology. These are neurologists. I mean, some of the best, brightest brains in the business researching this stuff. Vitamin D upregulates the endogenous antibiotics and innate immunity and suggests incongruities in flu behavior may be secondary to the epidemiology of vitamin D deficiency. What that means is vitamin D makes your own immune system work better, being able to fight off disease and fight disease once it's in the body. And those incongruities in flu behavior, the flu, that's a whole thing that just perplexes me. The Center for Disease Control in Atlanta, 18 months in advance, determines which flu strain out of the millions is going to jump on a plane from Hong Kong, come to the U.S., and infect everybody. And here's your vaccine. Almost like saying, here's your sign. Sorry if you got a flu vaccine. I don't mean to be mean. But those incongruities in flu behavior, how come some people respond worse and some people respond better? How come some people get a deadly case of the flu? How come some people get a mild case of the flu? What they're proposing is, well, based upon the levels of vitamin D in their body, it's making their immune system work better so they can fight it off better. Okay? Making sense? And vitamin D is so simple and it's inexpensive. And you can't really screw up vitamin D. You can buy the Walmart brand vitamin D and you should be okay.
What about being on the sun? Does that give you vitamin
Yes,
D?
that's what I was
Aha.
gonna say. Don't you have to be in the sun to activate it?
Yes, you do. You do. Here's the thing.
Yes.
What you are actually ingesting is the precursor to vitamin D, which is 25-hydroxy-D3. It can only be converted into vitamin D by the body when you're exposed to UV light. Okay, so yes, sunshine exposure is important. In fact, the further you get from the equator, the less sunny it is, the angle of, the axis of the Earth and all that, the greater the levels of vitamin D deficiency. In fact, my daughter right now is in college at University of Alaska Fairbanks. She came home for Christmas. I said, here's your bottle of vitamin D. Take it with you on the plane. Okay, because it's a real concern. Yeah.
So what kind of dose would you take of that?
I would recommend 5,000 international units per day. That is the perfect dose. And there's another thing, like where the medical doctor might have recommended only 1,200 milligrams of fish oil. Most of the studies done with vitamin D, all these positive results they've seen with the vitamin D, were done with doses as low as 1,000 international units. So think more is better, at least up to 5,000 international units. You can potentially increase your ability to fight disease and all these other benefits by that much more. They've even done a study, I read a study, they used 2,000 international units of vitamin D per day on a group of females with fibromyalgia, and it basically, this is just 2,000 international units, and it basically essentially brought all their pain down to zero. These are chronic fibromyalgia patients. No other intervention other than the vitamin D. George?
The doctor recommended me to take D2 50,000 milligrams a week.
50,000 milligrams a week?
D2.
Okay. In certain situations, because I've seen other people on real high dose, like prescription vitamin Ds, it depends on what's going on, what might be going on in your body, and he may have seen some lab results that led him to want to prescribe that much. Okay?
That's why I said,
Okay. And it's working.
yeah.
It's working. George has been around a long time. He was like one of my first patients in 1996. Yeah. All right. Now, higher levels of D3 in the blood are associated with lower rates of colon, breast, ovarian cancer, renal cancer, pancreatic cancer, and aggressive prostate and other cancers. So it has a very strong cancer preventive effect also. There's a possible link between vitamin D deficiency and autism. This is kind of interesting research. There's kind of an autism epidemic now. I think the latest statistics are 1 in every 68 kids are destined to become autistic. They're thinking there may be a link between the vitamin D status of the mother while that child is in utero and their likelihood of getting autism or becoming autistic later. In fact, we talk about those environmental triggers. That goes back to that field of epigenetics, how things from your environment, you may have a gene. They're still not sure if there's a gene for autism. They haven't exactly identified it. But if there is a dormant gene in the body for autism, they're thinking a vitamin D deficiency while you're in the womb can be one of those environmental triggers. So you can start to see how this is important. Okay, now, just as an example, this is a recent test. This blood was drawn on March 7th. And this patient right here, she's having migraine headaches, chronic pain, all kinds of problems. And among other things that were out of whack, guess what? Vitamin D, remember I said the precursors, 25-hydroxy D3, 25-hydroxy D, 14.5 nanograms per milliliters. I know that's probably kind of hard to see from over there. Normal is between 30 and 100 nanograms per milliliters. So she is more than half. I mean, she's deficient just at the minimum level of vitamin D. And she's got all kinds of health challenges, and this is one of the primary reasons right here. Okay? All right. Now, antioxidant multivitamins, because I know everybody, when you talk about nutrition, they're like, oh, should I supplement? Yeah, you should supplement, and you should supplement with an antioxidant multivitamin. We need vitamins, we need the minerals. We talked a little bit earlier about how the soil is just depleted. We're kind of we have a lot of people to feed. And it's kind of like mass production. How fast can you turn the food around? How fast can you grow it? There's just not a lot of nutrients in the soil anymore. And I'm really not sure what the Monsanto seeds, the genetically engineered seeds are doing to the nutrient value, because they're designed to grow fast and sturdy and all that. But we just don't have enough nutrients. We're not getting them through your diet, even if you're eating a good diet. So I do recommend a good multivitamin paired with an antioxidant. And the antioxidants are C, B, E, and I have those listed here in just a minute here. Now, also, they've shown that you'll have a better response, immune response, and increased, or it'll reduce the likelihood you get sick and not die when it comes right down to it. Also, the vitamin mineral supplements can reduce the rate of infection in the elderly by up to 50%. I mean, that's huge. And no copper. Okay, no copper. Who's taking multivitamins right now? Anyone? Okay. When you get home, look at your bottle and see if there's copper in it. Okay? Because latest research shows you should not have copper in your multivitamin, because copper is the new bad guy in Alzheimer's disease. It is shown to create those tau formations. They used to think it was aluminum. They're like, well, we were close, but not quite. But copper is implicated in neurodegenerative disorders. The number one source of copper toxicity in the human body comes from, any guesses? That's number 2. Number 1 is municipal plumbing. What are all our pipes? They're all copper pipes. So we're getting enough copper. If you have copper in your multivitamin, oopsie, you're probably going to increase your risk for Alzheimer's disease, okay? Multivitamins. That's the number 2 source of copper toxicity, next to the municipal plumbing, okay? In fact, that was the, yeah, Jennifer was nice enough to bring this Shakeology. It has ology attached to it, so it must be scientific. But she said, hey, I want to know what you think about this. And the first thing my eye went to, copper, 0.8 milligrams. So, and if there is any copper in a multivitamin, it should be like 200 or 300 micrograms. teeny tiny bit. But most of the real good multivitamin companies just taking the copper out completely. Question?
I had weight loss surgery 3 years ago. My doctor told me to take Children's Flintstones Complete. And so I said, well, after a couple of years, can I start taking my regular multivitamin? He goes, why would you? He said his opinion is it's one of the best vitamins in the market. So what's your feelings about Children's Flintstones chewables?
I've heard that before, that they're pretty nutritionally complete. I have a concern with the food dyes that they use and the stuff they pack it in, their delivery system. You might ask your doctor about that. It's like, hey, what about, all this other stuff? The sugars and things like that in the Flintstone vitamin, in his mind, might be negligible in your particular condition. Yeah. Okay.
So is there copper in Flintstones?
I don't know. Last time I had a Flintstones vitamin, I was 7, so I'm not quite sure, to be honest with you.
Well,
It doesn't come up a whole lot.
Surprised when he said that, but
You might check. Look and see what's in there. I used to love Flintstone vitamins. I had those when I was a kid. That was, yeah. It's all about taste. In fact, I got an email from the UCLA Alumni Association, Department of Health Sciences. They're doing this really cool, I wish we were closer to UCLA, because they're doing this really cool thing, this lecture series called The Science of Food. And taste is one of the ones coming up like in May, but they're on like a Wednesday night. I don't know, maybe we can get a hall pass, we can go and learn all about taste. But they have a doctor and a chef, and they give a lecture. And the one coming up might be a week from tomorrow night, but it's The Science of Sushi. I mean, how cool is that? Even if you don't like sushi, I mean, I think that would be really cool. They have some, like a sushi chef and then the scientist, and they're gonna, I mean, it's really cool. Really cool. But yes, it's probably all about taste. Yes. Okay. Now, moving on. The antioxidant multivitamins, several micronutrients such as antioxidant vitamins and minerals can modulate the states of oxidative stress and chronic inflammation and may affect telomere length. Those of you who were here last time may have briefly heard me mention telomeres, okay? When your cells divide, you have DNA, the cells replicate, the DNA rips apart. It can do that about 50 times or so. At the end of that DNA strand are protective end caps of DNA called telomeres, okay? Once those things are gone, and they're gone through the cell dividing process, that cell starts doing weird things. And when the cell starts doing weird things, that's when you develop things like cancer and things like that. There's research here that shows if you're taking a good antioxidant multivitamin, it could even increase the length of those protective DNA end caps during cell division. Okay, I mean, that's the very aging process right there. So this very well could kind of halt, I hate to say reverse the aging process. Who was the guy that looked for the Fountain of Youth, Ponce de Leon? I don't remember. That was a long time, but that was like the Flintstone vitamin era when I learned about that stuff, Fountain of Youth. But it can help with that cell division and the actual aging process. Now, antioxidant multivitamins, what do I take? Well, make sure there's the basics in there. C, D, E, B12, zinc. You've all probably looked at a label, you said, oh my gosh, this is overwhelming. I don't even know what I'm looking at. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff in there. But as long as you have all the B's in there, the C's, the D's, the E's, zinc, manganese, magnesium, you'll be in good shape. Just whack the copper. Okay? All right, now, summary. Any questions up to this point before I kind of just summarize? Go.
What's the difference between B3, 6, and 12?
They're called different things. They're basically different, yes, thank you, different structures. And they have slightly different effects in the body. So it's basically the same thing, but a little bit different, tweaked just a little bit different.
So 12 would catch everything. Or, I mean, I see
Well,
you didn't
B12
list
is the most important.
Right.
B6 is also very important. They're different, but they're from the same family. They're all B vitamins, but slightly different structures.
that.
Okay?
I just noticed
Yes,
didn't
you
list
want
it.
to have all the Bs,
Okay.
but B12 is one of the biggies.
Okay.
Okay? And it gets pretty, there's a bunch of Bs. It gets really,
Super B complex, would that just cover you?
yes. It says super, it has to.
And you take too much vitamin, zinc or any of those vitamins?
You know, it is possible to take too much of anything. Usually the body's pretty good about excreting out the excess. The only time, you know, I don't know. Yes, you can get too much of it. I don't know off the top of my head what the consequences of, say, having too much zinc or magnesium or manganese would be. Okay? It really doesn't get as much research or as much press as, for example, the copper. I know there's a danger with what's called the fat-soluble vitamins. The vitamins fall into two categories. Either they dissolve in water or they dissolve in fat. The ones that dissolve in fat stay in your body a lot longer, like vitamin E, vitamin A to a certain extent, and you kind of have to be careful with those. But when it comes right down to it, I don't know how to give you an exact answer, George. That's a good question. Yeah. See, now I got my day full of research tomorrow. Thanks. Okay, any more questions?
Are you familiar with spirulina?
Spirulina.
Spirulina?
Yes, that's like a grass or something,
It's
right?
algae.
Yeah. Algae is great. It's nutrient packed. Yes. Eat it.
Are you eating that too?
Eat it.
Thinking about it.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, algae's real nutrient packed, and so is seaweed. Just don't get it dusted with, just get the raw. Because when you start dusting it with like the wasabi flavor and mesquite flavor and all that fancy stuff, that's when they introduce the MSG, because MSG is in all that stuff.
And the health benefit of spirulina?
Just all the nutrients in it. I mean, it's rich in the minerals and it's rich in vitamins.
What form
Yeah.
does it come in? Is it a powder?
I've seen it in a powder, almost like a protein powder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it's supposed to be high in
Yeah.
protein.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yes.
I
Yes.
have someone who wants to make me some quinoa pancakes.
Uh-huh.
Isn't that a grain?
Yes, it is. Pass.
Seriously, come on.
I would pass. Yeah,
Okay,
I would pass.
all grains.
Yeah. Yeah, I would pass. Yeah. I make a pretty mean almond flour pancake. Yeah.
You can make a cauliflower pancake.
Do you make one out of the regular cookbook? Because I tried making them last Saturday and
I've got a
They
recipe
were-
for you before you leave.
oh, wonderful.
Yes.
Me too.
Yes. Is it in? I don't remember.
What is it?
Pancakes.
The dollar whatever in there. Dollar.
Oh no, not the dollar ones. No, there's real pancakes. Pancakes, wheat-free pancakes. Yeah, this has the real. Do you have the 30-minute or less, or is this the one you have?
No. Oh, I didn't know there was two.
This is the original one. It's got a much better pancake recipe.
Oh, I didn't know there was two.
Yes.
I just watched it on your video.
Yes, this is an awesome recipe, and you can throw blueberries in there, raspberries, stuff like that, so you can have your blueberry pancakes. The one thing you will notice, you've probably already noticed that with the almond flour pancakes, is they're kind of fragile. And you have to really keep your pan at a medium heat. You have to really, what I'll do is usually try to keep the pan lubed with coconut oil, and then they release a lot better. Just kind of release the edges, and then boom. Every time I make them, I get better at them. The first
What do
batch
you put
was
on
kind of scorched.
I know syrup salad.
What do I put on them? Actually, you know what you can put on them is just fresh fruit. Or if you have a like a fruit spread that is just fruit,
Sugar.
like you can,
Fruit spread.
yeah. In fact, if they just put real fruit in a jar, they shouldn't need to add sugar, and they shouldn't need to add artificial sweetener. So look around, see if you can find something that doesn't have, or make your own whipped cream. I mean, just whip some cream.
Yeah.
And use some stevia, concentrated stevia. Just put a few drops in it and whip your own cream and put that on there.
Oh.
Yeah, you can even find, in fact, he mentions it in here, you can find some sugar-free maple syrup. And I think somewhere in the book he mentions where you can find it.
So you can make your own maple syrup, right? Just use stevia and maybe
Maple syrup is just a sap out of a tree.
I don't know about making your own maple syrup, but I suppose if you just get raw maple syrup, you can add stevia, yeah. Or you can use xylitol, because xylitol, which is a sugar alcohol without all, it has no blood sugar effect, it does not create the gastrointestinal disturbance, and it measures cup for cup with regular sugar, table sugar.
well, the powdered stevia, what's it called?
Stevia? Well, the powder, you got to be careful because the powdered stevia in the store is usually stevia mixed with actual sugar.
No way.
No.
Check when you get home. The stuff called Truvia,
No,
Yeah.
not that. I think I bought the Xylot, or what's it, it was in a big green bag. What did I get?
that sounds like Truvia.
No, it's not Truvia.
No?
I know, I used to use Truvia, but this is the Xylot, it's a tall one. like,
Okay.
well.
Xylitol is pretty much the only sugar alcohol I'll let in my kitchen
I think that's fine.
because it doesn't, a lot of the other alcohols will give you incredible gas, gastrointestinal disturbance, and quite possibly diarrhea depending on how much you consume. But xylitol does not do that.
So where, can you get xylitol locally?
I'm sure Natural Planet has it, and I usually get mine like in a 5-pound bag at Amazon.
I
They got everything. It's like, you know,
know, it's gonna be my new market.
yes.
Amazon.com.
After our last month little thingy here, the first time we went to the market, we were there for like 2 hours reading labels.
Uh-huh.
And I eat like juice in the morning. I don't drink coffee until I have a cup when I get here. But
Okay.
when I first wake up, I like juice, 100% juice. That's okay, right? Because it's full of sugar.
It's full of sugar.
He didn't want to buy
Yeah.
my juice. It's like, I gotta have my juice.
Thank you, sir, for paying attention last time.
Just a little, that's what I do, is I just drink.
If you need your sugar shot, take an ounce of juice. But
I don't think it's, I don't think it's a sugar.
it is all the fructose in that. You drink a glass of like orange juice, it spikes your blood sugar. You know why you need your coffee when you get to the office? Because you're crashing from that insulin response. So you're going through that blood sugar insulin spike because of the glass of juice. Sorry, I'm just the messenger.
What
So you
about
can
the
make
fresh
your own
squeezed orange
Yeah,
juice?
like a juicer.
It's real high in sugar
Still.
because of the fructose. Yeah, yeah.
Well, isn't that why people mix it with, do a vegetable fruit mix when they juice a lot of times?
When you juice, you should have 75% veggies and 25% fruit. Yeah. Yeah. Carrots are very high in sugar. Oh, that kills me because I love those rainbow carrots. I actually saw how much sugar is in carrots. I'm like, that's not right. But
And
green
bananas,
stuff, like
right.
spinach and broccoli. Oh heck, 25% fruit, you won't taste all the green stuff. Suck it up. And I'm just a messenger. That's, yeah.
Well,
And bananas are very
I
high in
quit smoking
sugar.
a couple of years ago, and I found out the hard way, when you quit smoking and you drink coffee first thing in the morning, your body can't handle it. Every morning I felt like I was gonna have a heart attack.
Okay.
So that's why I stopped the coffee first thing when I got up, and I started drinking juice. And I
Mhm.
love to have a little glass of juice first thing in the morning.
Well, I'm just saying, you're creating that blood sugar spike first thing in the morning, and then the insulin response, and then you crash down.
Okay,
Okay?
all right,
It's all right.
that's okay.
So we held it for her to start smoking then?
Yeah.
The low tar.
Go- yeah, the low tar. Yeah.
I'll look at that.
Pink goddess,
Get the light cigarettes. Yeah.
Okay, all right. give me-
Yeah.
He's always looking out for you.
So you mentioned wasabi a minute ago, so wasabi powder's not good?
Usually it's got a ton of MSG in it. Well, actually, no. Just wasabi is usually just horseradish. Like the kind you get at the sushi restaurant. Usually it's just colored horseradish. And I will never give up my wasabi.
Well, in the 30-minute cookbook, it mentions it as some of the recipes. as
Yeah.
well, So I was gonna get.
But when you turn it into a dust, when you turn it into a powder and like put it on the seaweed, for example, that's when they introduce the like tons of
Well, so
MSG and
what's the
things
best
like that.
kind to get then? Wasabi. I mean, is it I've never bought it. So
Like the paste.
Oh, it's a paste?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
don't
it's a
buy the
paste.
dust.
No. Mm-mm. No. Okay. Any more? Is everybody sad now because they can't eat anything?
It's panicky.
It's all these supplements that we have to go buy.
You don't have to go buy.
We get to go buy.
What I hope to do is kind of ignite a little smoldering ember inside all of you. Grasp what you can of this and run with what you can of this. You know, you have choices. The science is out there, the facts are out there. These are the things that can make you sick or will make you sick or increase your likelihood that you get sick. These are the things that have been shown to increase your likelihood that you won't and that you will be healthier you'll potentially live longer and have a better quality of life. You know, it all comes down to choices. Is anybody perfect? Very few people. I only know one guy on the whole planet who's 99%, almost 99% perfect. I think his omega-6 to omega-3 ratio is like 2 to 1. I mean, he's like, the guy is just a demon when it comes to this. And I've learned a lot from him. Have I grasped all of it and run with it? Well, of course not. You know, there's some things that I eat that stray from this, and everybody's human. I hate to say that as an excuse, but you know, the closer you can get to following some simple guidelines in the way you prepare your food or even when you eat out, the better off you're going to be. And, you know, take this. There's information out there on the internet. Sometimes it's hard to know who to trust. You know, reputable sources might be like one of the larger institutions, like a Mayo Clinic or something like that, if they offer any kind of nutritional advice. They kind of tend to focus on things on the back end, like sick care as opposed to prevention. But, you know, there are some reputable sources. You can kind of research these things on your own.
So where do you get do you make your almond flour? That is like,
No.
that is like gold. I've been making it, and you only get like a cup per cup of nuts.
Even almonds are just so expensive.
They are.
I end up paying like, I get my almond flour on Amazon. But you can get it like at nuts.com or someplace like that. But for 4 pounds, I think last batch I paid like $34 or something like that.
I know
Yeah.
I paid like $8 for less than 4 cups, but
Yeah.
that was the first time I bought it, and then I decided to try
Yeah,
making it.
yeah, that's exactly one of those 1 pound packages is exactly 4 cups. Yeah. In fact, I know that because the chocolate chip recipe calls for 4 cups of almond flour.
You
No,
said
no,
3 cups of almond flour, so one recipe,
Yeah.
8
The wheat, you know what? The wheat-free pizza though.
Yeah.
It was you know, I was thinking I made a couple of wheat-free pizzas. The Pizza Crust 2 recipe in the original cookbook is awesome. It only takes like a cup of almond flour. So, I mean, you can make a whole pizza, a cup of almond flour, a cup of garbanzo bean flour, half cup of flaxseed. But I made my own pesto with the fresh basil and then put some grilled chicken on there, some sun-dried tomatoes, some artichoke hearts, mozzarella cheese, of course, and man, it's
That's
delicious.
the first thing I made out of that cookbook was the pizza. It was delicious.
Mhm.
One piece was so filling.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
that's the amazing thing about almond flour, like the pancakes too.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh,
Yeah,
you
one
know,
was enough.
yeah. So,
Very
The
good.
cowboy stuffed pizza at Papa Murphy's is pretty filling too.
I'll bet it is. I'll bet it is. S- serve that with a glass of juice and you don't need anything else, right?
Yeah, what would you want for any?
I'll have the cowboy stuff. I'll have the pizzone, the bloomin' onion, and a glass of orange juice, please. But no alcohol. Dr. Rose said no alcohol.
I'll smoke a cigarette after it's all gone.
Mhm. All right.
Oh, God.
Awesome. And if you guys have any questions or if you're totally overwhelmed and stuff like that, like I said at last month's lecture, you're welcome to call the office and ask me questions. If I don't know the answer, I will do my God's honest best to research it and find the best answer. Like, George, your question's still bugging me. I'm going to end up researching that tomorrow about, you know, overdose of the minerals and see what I come up with. But, you know, you're welcome to do that. I don't mind doing that. My mission's kind of to make people more aware. I realize I can't make people healthier, but I can make them more aware. They have to make that decision. I kind of took this path because I saw so many people I couldn't get better because of what was going in their mouth. There was just no chance with the building blocks that were available. You know, they have the ingredients for a tent, and we're trying to turn them into a temple. It just is never going to work. So that's why I'm kind of on this crusade, if you will. So.